Hello and welcome to the third and final how-to video from Elevate Greater Manchester in conjunction with Use. Hopefully some of you will have seen the previous two videos where we covered personal branding and public speaking. So I will make reference back to a couple of things that we covered in those sessions, but don't worry, this works as a standalone video anyway, so no need to rush back and watch those now. For those of you watching for the first time, my name's Ilona and I'm the co-founder and director at Elevate Greater Manchester. We're a business development consultancy and we're really passionate about raising the visibility of high-performing individuals and organisations in the region. The previous couple of sessions have focused on the individual and how we make ourselves more visible. Networking is definitely a part of that journey, but a little bit more of the focus today will be on how we use that visibility for the benefit of our businesses. So as some of you will have seen before, this is a slide that tells you a little bit more about who I am. So we've covered off some of the public speaking experience that I've had, some of the training, and also some of the elements that give me kind of more rounded idea of who I am. As I've discussed in previous sessions, there are loads of labels that we put on ourselves that other people put on us, and we might be really happy with those. There might be some that would want to change. But what I would really encourage is when you are out and about networking, whether that's in person or online, that you embrace all of those different elements of your personality and who you are. If you go to an event or you're chatting with somebody and they want to know a bit more about you, and all I kind of say is, hi, I'm Ilona and I'm co-founder of Elevate Greater Manchester, done. That's not a particularly interesting conversation. It doesn't give a lot of hooks to be able to develop a more worthwhile and meaningful conversation. So make sure that you reference other things that are going on in your life, that you have maybe some interesting stories that you want to share. You've got things that you can start to build up those conversations. And I realise that that sounds quite basic. You know, we're all adults, we're all out and about in the world, we're having those conversations on a daily basis. But sometimes when we put ourselves into a networking mode and we're at a particular event, we're in perhaps a style or a format of event that we're not as comfortable in, we kind of forget some of those personal things and we feel like all we can talk about is our job or our business, and we're worried about crafting some kind of perfect 60-second elevator pitch that's, you know, going to take somebody that you've never met before to somebody that you're prepared to do business with. And that's a huge amount of pressure and it leads to sometimes quite unnatural conversations. So definitely have some form of plan in mind in terms of what you want to say about your business. Understand that kind of stuff. It is a professional environment, but don't by any means feel that that's the only thing that you can talk about. Some of the best connections that I've made over the years have come from having some of those real personal connections rather than just the business conversations. So why should you listen to me about networking? I've mentioned that I run a business development consultancy, and a huge part of that is around understanding my network and how I can add value between different people in it. Launching Elevate Greater Manchester was a bit of a leap into the unknown, and it was knowing that I had such a good network behind me and behind my business partner that really enabled us to go from that potentially standing start. You know, it's brand new business launching in a pandemic. We knew that actually all of those networks that were developed in the years before, now is the time that they would start to come through. So I'm going to touch on that journey a little bit more as we go through. But networking, as I say, is something that I've been doing very actively in Manchester, across the UK and further afield for some time. And it's something that I've had to justify why it's worthwhile doing to previous employers before, and it's something that I've kind of had to be able to justify within my own businesses as well. So as I say, we will run through those things as we go, but just want to start by this question of what is your value. So before we get onto that real value of networking, I think it's really important that you understand what your value is. So those of you who have gone through the personal branding and public speaking sessions with me, this probably comes as no surprise that I want you to take a moment of self-reflection and understand what value it is that you're going to bring to the conversation. The clearer that you are about the fact that you do add value, you deserve your space in that room, you're going to feel more confident going into it. But understanding what value you bring from your business, whether that's freelancing, whether it's your own business, whether it's a role that you hold in somebody else's organisation, what is the value of that business? What's your product? What's your service? And why should other people in the room care about that? Just run through some of those things in your head first, get those things clear. And as I've said, it's not about having this super polished pitch to go in. It's just about having that real kind of confidence in yourself to be like, no, I do add value. I do understand why people will be interested in what I'm doing, which just helps all those other conversations to flow more easily. I would really recommend asking this question of other people who are around you. So whether that's friends, family, co-workers, clients, suppliers, why is it that they spend time with you? Why is it that they come to you for advice? Why is it that they spend money with you? Why is it that they want you to work with them? Because sometimes our main value are the things that we just take for granted about ourselves. So when I went through this process on a bit of a coaching course earlier this year, and I started to think about what my real value was and what I brought, I had kind of a few ideas and I was scribbling stuff down. I was like, I'm not sure if I've really got to like the core of what it is that I add. And when I threw that open to a number of different people, they pretty much all came back and said networking, that it was my ability to bring people together with different skill sets, different experiences, create opportunities for collaboration, that they would come to me for instructions, they'd come to me for an understanding of what the market was like in the region. And that was like, oh, yeah, of course it is. Like that's literally what I do. That's my job. Of course, that's the value that I bring. But because it was so ingrained in my day-to-day life, it wasn't the thing that was standing out at me. So ask that question of the people who are around you. Ask what it is that they find special, because that's probably going to be one of the key things that you talk about. And I think it's really important at this stage as well that we identify that networking and selling are two different activities. They both have value, they're both important, and they both deserve a place in your strategy, and there will be overlap between them. But networking isn't just going out and selling. It's not, this is my product and service and I'm going out networking to find the people who want to buy that. It's much broader than that. It's a long-term relationship, and it's around all the different parts that make you and your business work. I often speak to people who feel like networking's been a waste of time because they've not sold directly through that network. But that's their sales process. If they said to me they've got a sales process and they weren't selling at the end of it, you probably need to sort out your sales process. If they got to the end of their networking and they said they didn't have a valuable network, they didn't have something that was useful to them, then they probably want to tweak their networking. But the two things are slightly different. And one of the ways that I then like to think about networking is about recruiting your team. So if you were running an organisation and you knew that you wanted to grow that organisation, you were ready to start employing more people, you wouldn't just think, I'm going to go out and find people and bring them into the business and that's it. You would start to think about what the roles are. You'd start to think about what skills and experience you would want from somebody to fulfil that role. You'd think about the type of person, the type of culture that you want to have around you. And then once you'd identified the people that you were looking for, you'd spend some time to work out where they are to go and actually recruit them and attract them into your business or your organisation. And networking is essentially that on a very broad scale. So it's not about bringing those people directly into work for you, but they are actually all going to be working for you. That is the beauty of having an effective network, is that you have all of these people out there supporting you and helping you in your professional life. So think about who it is that you need in that team. And as I've said, the first one that comes to people's mind is that we want clients, we want people to sell to. And absolutely, you do need those people in your network. But you also need really good, reliable suppliers in your network. You need peers, you need people who are going through similar things to you that you can bounce ideas off, that you can trust to go to for advice. You maybe want a mentor, you want someone who's been successful in what it is that you want to do, that will share that knowledge with you, that can be there as a kind of hold your hand along your journey. You might want a coach, someone who will actually push you and hold you accountable, whether that's in an informal or formal capacity. You might also be looking for people to become employees, so you might be doing part of this as a literal recruitment drive. Who is it that you want to bring into your company? You might be looking for contacts in press and PR that will help to promote what it is that you're doing. So all of these different things that you're looking for, you're unlikely just to happen across these people by going out and about. You might get lucky, you might bump into them, and that's great. But realistically, you probably need to put some work into understanding where the gaps are in your existing network. So do a bit of an audit of who your key contacts are and establish where those gaps are. It might be that you have loads and loads of peers, but you don't have anyone who's the level above for you to learn from. Or it might be that you've established a brilliant network of thought leaders and you've got all these great inspiring people around you, but you don't have really great relationships with suppliers, or you don't have really great relationships with the press. So once you've started to understand who it is that you're looking for, then you can start to be much more strategic about where and how you network. In the good old days, pre-pandemic, I would say that you could network morning, noon and night in Manchester. You know, we used to have jokes about who could go the longest without having to pay for a meal, because you could literally just rock up at event after event after event. You could go to lunches, you could go to award ceremonies, you could go to networking drinks, you could go to breakfast briefings. Constant opportunities for you to go out and meet other people. So you needed to become quite choosy about which were the ones that were worth your time in going to. Where are the ones where I'm going to meet the people that I want to see? Where am I going to meet the people that are of real value to myself and my organisation? And probably one of the most common mistakes that I see people make when they start networking is they just go to the events that they want to go to. And yet no reason not to go to those events. If there's interesting training, if there's people that you like there, it just looks like a fun place to be, then brilliant, go to those events, that's fine. But let's not make the mistake of pretending that that is the most effective strategic way to network. We need to be looking at where our team are, where are the people that I want to recruit into my network. So look at where those people are, what events are they attending? What types of training do they go to? What kind of speakers do they listen to? What kind of formats do they like? Are they physically in Manchester, or is it perhaps something where that is going to be, you know, a trip down to London every now and again, because actually, you know, that's where the investors are that you want to be part of your network. So start asking some of those questions. Now, I do appreciate that as we're coming out of a pandemic, a whole load of this has gone online, and we're going to talk a little bit about online and offline networking shortly. But just because those events aren't happening physically doesn't mean that they're not happening. If anything, more and more events have sprung up because everybody can suddenly do an event, everybody's moving that content online and potentially having a much easier national and international audience. So have a look at where those events are taking place, have a look at who's speaking at them, have a look and see who's watching them, because they're the ones that you're going to want to engage with and be a part of. So face-to-face networking is something that I absolutely love. I've missed it massively this year. I'm hugely excited about the time when we will be able to go back out, we'll be able to see people, we'll be able to stand in queue for mediocre coffee and a slightly stale sandwich. Yeah, I'm genuinely looking forward to getting back to some of that. I'm an extrovert, I get my energy from being around other people, and I'm really nosy. I love going into a room full of people that I don't know with the aim of finding out more about what they do, what makes them tick, why they're there. You know, I absolutely love it. And I appreciate that that makes me quite unusual. That potentially makes me a little bit of a weirdo in some people's eyes. I know that networking can be a really terrifying thing to do. I know that walking into a room full of people is not something that most people relish and look forward to. And going back a few years in my career, I would have been in that group as well, that I would get those nerves walking in. I would worry about what to say. I'd worry about going up and starting conversations. I would worry about how to know if I was doing the right thing, if I was saying the right things to the right people. Those of you who listen to my public speaking how-to video will know that I spoke a little bit about confidence and nerves, and it is the same situation here. Those nerves of walking into a room full of people you don't know, they're the same nerves that we get for public speaking. You're putting your body in a potentially dangerous situation, okay? We're away from the people that we know, we're out of our comfort zone. Evolutionary speaking, that is a dangerous place to be, and that's when all those nerves kick in. So don't beat yourself up about it, just accept that that's something that your body's going to do to try and protect you. Deep breath, shoulders back, smile, look people in the eye, try and look confident, and it will actually make you feel more confident. And the great news is that because a lot of people in that room will be nervous, if you look and sound confident, those people will gravitate towards you. So it's kind of doing the job for you there. I also hugely recommend going networking with somebody, whether it's a colleague, whether it's a peer, whether it's a client, or just somebody that you've managed to kind of drag along to come with you. Walking in with someone will really help you get over those nerves. I know some super confident people who just hate that first moment of walking into a room on their own. So we will literally meet, you know, in a coffee shop down the road 10 minutes before, and then we'll walk in together, because it takes that fear out of it. And then I might not see them again the rest of the evening, the rest of the event. They're out and about, they probably know more people than I do there, but they just have that real fear of walking in on their own. So if that's you, just ask for help and get somebody to be that person who walks in with you. I've run literally hundreds of networking events over the past few years, and it's only on a handful of occasions that people have really utilised my experience as the organiser. So I offer it out all of the time. You know, if you're coming to one of my events, tell me who you want to meet, tell me who you want to sit with, you know, ask those questions. We publish delegate lists in advance, all of that kind of stuff. But so few people really take advantage of it. So before you even get to the room, just make sure you've done all that homework. Okay, it sounds a little bit patronising, so you know, do your homework, check out who's going to be there, stalk them on LinkedIn. It's the basics, but it makes such a huge difference, and it's one of the things that's really easy to skip when we're busy, we're moving between lots of different things. It's an easy thing to think, oh, I'll just sort that out when I get there, it'll be fine. But that little bit of work in advance, sending those LinkedIn messages ahead of time, dropping people an email. If it's somebody who you've met before and you want to have a chance to catch up with them, maybe that's a great opportunity to do that. Getting the event organisers on side really helps when there's people in the room that you don't know. They can facilitate those introductions, they can tell you more about the format. You know, they are there to help. They want you to have a great experience at the event, they want you to meet the right people. So utilise their expertise, utilise their knowledge of who's there. You know, you're not being difficult, you're actually helping them to do their job. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Once you're there, again, it's all the basics that we'll have heard time and time again. So being friendly, being polite, don't try and be, you know, particularly controversial. You know, we talk about avoiding politics and religion. You know, networking is not the time to start a massive debate with somebody about, you know, particularly sensitive topics. I would add into that list conversations around children. You know, if you want to talk about your own children and your own setup, absolutely fine, part of who you are, and if that resonates with the person you're speaking to, they will come back to you and make those connections. But as someone who's been married for 13 years and doesn't have children, I can't tell you how many events I've been to where complete strangers think it's acceptable to ask me if I have children, why I don't have children, when am I planning on having children, and having to justify some kind of fairly personal decisions to strangers is not fun. Luckily, I'm in the category of people who have just chosen not to have children. Asking those same questions to members of my friends and family would be devastating. So just because it's a really safe topic for you, don't assume it is for somebody else. Just that little bit of consideration. It's the stuff that we would tend to have quite easily day to day, but sometimes when we're panicking and we're going through a bit of a checklist of things that we want to ask or conversations that we want to start, we maybe veer off into topics that aren't quite as safe as we would want them to be. And as you're working the room, you will often get to the bit that somebody latches onto. This is probably one of the most common questions that I have around physical networking. It's not the how do I approach somebody, we can kind of get over that with nerves. It's not the what do I say because we've done the prep. It's the what happens when this person just won't leave me alone. And the first thing I'd say is try and take it as a compliment. That person is almost certainly really nervous. They've latched onto you because they've seen someone who's friendly and open and confident, and they just don't want to leave because they've then got to go through that whole terrifying experience again. So if you have gone networking with somebody, if you have that friend in the room, you can do something that we call parking, which sounds quite cynical and quite difficult, but is actually a really positive thing, which is to take that person that you're stuck with, introduce them to somebody else, and then kind of leave them there and back off. It's good for them, they meet somebody else. It's good for you, you've been seen as someone who's useful and who's adding value. And if you do this on a regular basis with the person you go networking with, it kind of balances out amongst your time. But just being really respectful of how other people feel in that room, being open to, should we go and find somebody that you might be looking for? Should we go and speak to the event organizer and ask this? Take them with you, look after them a little bit, and they will be forever grateful for you taking the time and trouble to do that. Now, this is all great at a time when we can be in physical rooms. We're not in that position at the moment. Hopefully we will start to get back to that soon. A lot of you who are watching this will be using co-working spaces such as Use, and you might have some of these networking opportunities actually as you're around and about the office, that you will have some of these face-to-face meetings. And of course that is a really important part of your network. It's one of the reasons why co-working is becoming so popular. Isn't just because of the flexibility of the space, it's those opportunities to actually see people, have those conversations, opportunities to collaborate, bounce ideas off other people. So don't feel like just because there isn't an official networking event that what you're doing out and about isn't still networking. And then, of course, we have the virtual room. So all of those events that are going on online. So they're being hosted on a variety of different platforms. Some will have breakout rooms, some will have live chat, some of them will have chat boxes. So you're typing in and having that conversation. I've yet to find anything that truly replicates what face-to-face networking is like, but let's just embrace and use what we've got. For some people who are very nervous about networking, who do have that real fear of walking into a room full of unknown people, actually the virtual side of things can take a lot of that away. It's potentially easier for you to contribute on a webinar than it is for you to contribute on person. And then one of the things that I touched on earlier is that it's become much easier for us all to run our own events. So you don't have to wait for the right event with the right audience. You can actually create that. So if you're looking to strengthen your network, then why not set up an event? Why not invite those people to a round table? You can literally all log in from home and maybe just have a dozen people on there with a couple of topics that you want to discuss. Really great way of engaging your network, a nice, easy thing to do, which will hopefully add a lot of value to the people around the table. And you can be very strategic and very deliberate about who you invite to that. It might be that you invite a couple of people and you do an interview with them, or you host a panel discussion that you can then share out, and you can invite people to it. And then it's just bringing all of that control back to you. And where we've spoken in kind of public speaking around just saying yes to those opportunities massively raises your visibility in the community. You've got an opportunity to do that on a regular basis online. You know, these platforms are dead easy to use. You can get to grips with them quite quickly. So try and take advantage of the situation that we're in. You know, there are massive negatives. Nobody is pretending that a global pandemic is a good thing, but potentially there are some interesting opportunities there to do things in a different way. And even in a world of physical events, we shouldn't be forgetting the virtual side. You know, social media is a brilliant way of staying in touch with contacts that you've met at physical events. So follow them on social media afterwards, engage with what they're tweeting, comment on their LinkedIn posts, share articles, continue adding value. So all of those things that you do whilst you're networking, we're going to put those online as well. And then as and when we do get back into a situation where you might see people regularly at events, you're keeping that conversation going in between. And that has made it so much easier for me going into this pandemic, that I was already used to having a lot of online conversations in and around physical events. So it was a continuation of those. It wasn't I've only ever seen you in person, I've only ever spoken to you face to face, and now I've got to hunt you down on an online platform and start those conversations. So a really worthwhile thing to do there. And then this is kind of the big question is, well, where is the return on investment? So I've said to you to kind of separate out networking and sales. So if I'm not looking at it as a very straightforward sales cycle, how do we start tracking what the return on investment is for networking? And the honest answer is that's quite difficult to do, and it's also a long-term thing. So you might get lucky and you might meet exactly the right person at one event and be able to do something with them straight away, and that's wonderful. But there is an element of luck to that as well. Most people who you see with very effective networks, they've been working on those networks for a long time. You know, it is literally years of effort to build up a brilliant network. I've been networking in Manchester since the beginning of 2016, after moving across from Sheffield. So my network in Manchester is about 4 years old, and I've worked constantly on that network whilst I've been over here in previous roles at the University of Salford, at Pro Manchester, and then launching Elevate Greater Manchester. It's taken up a huge amount of my time, and I can remember at the University of Salford being challenged on this a couple of times by my line manager of, you know, why are you going to this event? Who is it that you're going to see there? What is it that you're going to get out of it? What are you going to bring back? And kind of having to take a step back and be like, I can't tell you those things now, but what I do know is that by picking the right events, working the room when I'm there, doing all the follow-up in between, when we need these things, my network will be there. And very quickly they started to trust that, you know, I wasn't prepared to waste my time at events and in groups that I didn't see adding value in the long term. And it would mean that when students would come to us, or graduates would come to us and say, I want to find out more about this industry, I want to know where there's an opportunity here, I'll be like, aha, I know somebody who does that, and I can introduce you to this person. And there was pretty much nothing that came through our office that I wouldn't be able to point in the right direction. When I did call out for guest speakers to come and talk on courses, when I did call out for employees to come to careers fair, all of those things would come through. You know, I'd pop it up on LinkedIn, and, you know, within the space of an hour or two, I could have filled all of the slots. So it's like, that's where my time really started to pay off. So it was putting the time in day to day and always keeping that eye on what's the value that I'm looking for. why is it that I'm at these events? Who is it that I'm looking for? So I could easily have wasted my time going to lots of events that I just happen to want to go to, but instead I was constantly looking for, where is it the network that's going to be valuable to the students and the graduates? Where are those future employers coming from? So that as and when I needed them, they were there and ready to go, and I was someone who'd added value to them over a couple of years. They were more than happy to jump in and support what I was doing. And that's something that I've continued throughout my career, have always looked for, how can I add value to people? How can I make introductions that are going to be useful for you? What can I do to raise my visibility in these networks so that people understand who I am and what it is that I do? And it would have been impossible to launch Elevate without having those networks in place. So it's a time of filming. We are very early days in Elevate, but my business partner and I have just been completely overwhelmed by how good our network has been. You know, we had confidence in it. We knew there was a great network there, but over the summer when we were furloughed, the amount of people who got in contact with us, the amount of people who sent potential job opportunities through, the amount of people who are actively pitching us in rooms for opportunities that we didn't know about was just crazy. That because they'd worked with us, because they'd networked closely with us over the past few years, as soon as they saw an opportunity to give something back to us, to be there and to support us, they went in. Feet first, right, brilliant, let's go. This is how we can help somebody. Have you thought about Ilona for that? Have you thought about Katie for that? And then when it got to actually making that official post of saying, here's Elevate, this is what we're up to, we did a little post out on LinkedIn and had that slight moment of fear of, you know, what if nobody comments? What if nobody likes it? Have we made, you know, a huge error in thinking that we could launch this mid-pandemic? And the response, again, was incredible. You know, the posts that we put on LinkedIn have been viewed by over 25,000 people in less than a week, had hundreds of reactions, hundreds of comments. We've had businesses that we wouldn't have dreamed of working with actively reaching out to us and saying, can we set up a meeting? We want you to come and do this for us. We've had people coming to us with opportunities to collaborate. We've had multiple journalists in touch with us to share part of our story, and hopefully over the coming weeks and months you'll see the benefit of that. But it would be very easy for someone externally to look at us and think, isn't that lucky? You know, hasn't it all just fallen together nicely? And I will never pretend that there isn't an element of luck in there. I'm incredibly grateful for what we have around us. But that is literally the return on investment that we're seeing. Those years of networking, building relationships, adding value, giving back to our community, this is now where we're seeing the return, and we're not seeing it as like brilliant, cha-ching, we've cashed out, job done. It's just a real validation that what we do works, that what we do has added value to the community, and that we can continue doing that. So we're not going to stop networking now. If anything, we're going to do more and more of it. We're adapting to the new world, as is everybody else. We're working closely with companies who are also trying to adapt to the new world, and sharing all of that best practice together. So hopefully that gives you some confidence that the time that you're spending, if it's strategic, if it's well managed, if it's done with a plan, you will start to see those returns. You know, it might be small to start with, it might be the odd introduction here, the odd introduction there, it might be some extra activity on your social, but as that builds up and compounds, it can become the strongest part of your professional career, is actually that collective knowledge, expertise that you've developed in this wide team. So take that outside of your business and just recruit the best possible network that you can for where you want to get to. So that's it from me. Obviously, I want to hear from you. I've just chatted for half an hour or so about how much I love networking, how much I love finding out about people and businesses. So please do, you know, drop me a message, tweet me, drop me a message on LinkedIn. Let me know what you're up to. Let me know who you're looking to recruit into your networks. If there's people in my network that you think would be of value, that you think you could really do something exciting with, just let me know, and if I can do that introduction for you, I absolutely will. If you're looking at running your own events, if you're looking for speaking opportunities to build your network, again, just get in touch, and if we can do that through the Elevate Greater Manchester programme, we will do. As some of you may have seen, we are working quite closely with U-Space, so Katie and I will be in and out of the office as well. So if you do see us around and about, come over, give us a little wave from a distance, and hopefully we can catch up face to face as well. So thank you ever so much for joining me. I hope all the videos have been useful to you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.